Football has a problem, an ownership problem. It's become fashionable to buy a football club as the revenue streams increase and the profits increase. Owners are buying clubs to try and make themselves more money, instead of the right reasons to build a club. Despite being rejected to buy Hull FC, Dai Yongge bought ReadingFC just before the playoff final in 2017. Reading were one game away from the Premier League, and he came in, spent £250 million, and now the club are stuck in League One with a squad full of kids, and they don't have the funding to turn the lights on, to keep the pitch and the grass right, as it costs £1,200 a night, which is too much for them. Sell Before We Die have been protesting and campaigning as they try to remove their owner from their club. Adam and Becky talk about how hard it has been running the protest group during this process.
When we go to matches, it's often like a second thought. You're just as concerned about how the protest or how something else is going to go. So, for example, last weekend, I was very nervous actually about how many fans we actually had in the stadium and whether the Fill the SCL campaign had actually gone very well. And as the East End started to fill up, I kind of relaxed a little bit more. But sometimes the game seems secondary when you're organising a protest. I think another example was the red card protest against Huddersfield. Because you're so distracted by protest, you often can't really enjoy the football. And I know that's self-inflicted in a way, but we try and do it for a noble cause.
Yeah, I've missed kick-off several times now because I've been getting people to sign petitions outside the stadium, handing red cards to people as they go in, doing media interviews outside the stadium before kick-off. So, yeah, it will be very nice to just have my bum in my seat at 3 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever time it is we're kicking off, and just be able to hopefully enjoy the football rather than thinking about, oh, there's a protest, there's people holding up banners. It's my job to get photos of that, and it's my job to get video of this and stuff. So yeah, I won't miss it. I think we'd all say that we've actually made some really good connections and some friends through all of this, because we are quite a random bunch of people that have all come together to do this. But at the same time, I think we will all be glad of a break from it and each other.
Reading are not the first club Dai has run into the ground. Dai also owned Beijing Rene in China and KSV Rosselair in Belgium. Both of the clubs weren't rescued in time, disappearing off the face of the earth. Something Reading fans are worried about. This isn't the first time Reading fans have had to protest against poor ownership.
I think getting TV coverage, like social media coverage, went up the protests. So I did it back in 1984 when obviously the old ownership, with Robert Maxwell of Oxford, tried to take us over. I was downtown in Reading Town Centre with my uncle. I was about 13 years old, with my uncle with a banner. So obviously I can do it this time around, do the protest, because I don't live around here no more. But I signed every petition what was going. Yeah. But back then, I helped out then, and we saved Reading from getting merged with Oxford, Thames Valley Halls. Never was going to let that happen. Never.
Despite the poor ownership, the fans have still been showing up, even if not to the usual numbers, as the fans have stayed loyal to the club that they love.
My first season was 2006, 7.
10 now? Yeah, 10-ish years, That took me when I was about 5 or 6, about 1975, 1976 season.
Since 1975. It affected me mentally very, very, very bad. Like I was, there was a fair play to Pete. I used to talk to him about it, and that was a way of me offloading, but it really affected me mentally, because I love this football club. I absolutely adore this football club. And my daughter she's born in Midlands, but I've said she's going to be a Royal. She's not going to be a Wolves fan like my partner. She's going to be a Royal, and she's at her second game today. She's only 1.5, but I brought her here. The first game was Leighton Orient, which we lost, but I absolutely adore this football club.
Finances are always going to be a large part of football, with clubs needing lots of money to pay staff and run successfully as a club. The extent of this money, on the other hand, is only going one way. I speak to football finance expert Kieran Maguire on how much it costs to run a League One club.
Under Dai Yongge, Reading have not published any accounts for their League One activities. So that's frustrating for me as somebody that compares all of the clubs. I think they came down with a very high cost base. They have been late with wages. There have been issues with the club, as we know, and they have been reliant on borrowing money. They borrowed from Rob Couhig. They were, I think it's fair to say that they were quite fortunate with the Michael Elise deal, with him going to Bayern and them getting cash in there. So I would imagine they would certainly be top half, probably top six, but I can't say that with any degree of certainty, because Dai Yongge has chosen that he would to break company law, and he has done that time and time again. And this is always a problem when you've got a system which is based on fines, and he'll say, I'll just pay the fine, unless there's an attempt to strike the club off. I'm not prepared to be any more transparent than that. The EFL have taken their steps, as we know, in terms of the transfer embargo, but given that he wasn't putting any money into the club, there was no interest in signing players. So it was a bit of a false flag.
Changes in the system are much needed, with fans needing to know that the best interests of the club will be kept during any potential future sales. Yuan Yang has been influential during the whole sale process for Reading, as she has campaigned in Parliament for a sale and now wants to make sure an independent regulator looks at the finances of every club.
Football really clearly has a governance problem. If there are this many clubs that are in financial dire straits year on year, especially in the EFL and in lower leagues across the country, then I think the government has to look at the situation and say, well, is this actually a well-functioning, well-regulated market? And the answer is it hasn't been. And we've seen that in the trails of not just Reading, but many other clubs up and down the country. So Reading is not unique in the problems that we suffered in terms of ownership. And I could list many other MPs in Wigan, in Portsmouth, in many other towns and cities that have faced similar issues. Now the government is bringing the Football Governance Bill to Parliament. It went through what's called its second reading in the Commons a few weeks ago. And I'm really keen that we get to the end of this process with a new law on the books that ensures independent regulation of football and a new football regulator that will be able to go around the clubs like Reading and say, show me your financial plan, let me see your balance sheet, let me see whether this is actually going to work for the club, and so that you can be a club that exists long into the future.
Nick Miller is an expert in foreign ownership and has written a book about the changes in the English game.
You will sure to find a team in the Football League that are in kind of, perfectly fine financial health, and even the ones that are, it only takes a few things to break the wrong way and you're suddenly in some trouble again. So there will always be, maybe not distressed assets is maybe a slightly extreme term, but there will always be clubs that need an injection of money, and there are always going to be people from wherever they are, whether they're English, whether they're American, whether they're from the rest of the world, who will see an opportunity, whether they have either the money or the ability or the smarts to actually realize that opportunity and grow whatever club it is and actually make some money. There'll always be people who think they can, and there will always be people. This is something that I wrote about in my book. There will always be people who will look at someone failing in a football, in any kind of field really, but particularly football we're talking about now, and think, well, I can do better than that. I spoke to one person who kind of said that the primary reason for someone owning and taking over a football club is ego, because they just think, well, this lot have been idiots, but I'm not an idiot, so I can do much better than that. And there were always going to be people who think that, there were always going to be people who think that and either have money or have some kind of access to money. So, yeah, I mean, as you say, we're almost at a majority now. I don't think it will be too long before it is actually a majority.
There's a lot of uncertainty on the pitch today for Reading. Better late in Orient result, and they find themselves 2 games away from Wembley and an emotional return to the Championship after such a tough season. However, there is some good news off the pitch. Dai Yongge has confirmed his sale of the club to Rob Couhig. Give something Reading fans to celebrate, no matter what the result is today. Something needs to change in football, however. Too many clubs have been too close to the brink. The governing bodies need to act. to make sure this doesn't happen again.
All the congratulations go to the lads on the field, the coaches, the staff, and you guys for supporting them this entire year when everybody said to give up. What's the one thing we all know? Never give up.